We begin this morning, though, with the latest on those legal challenges the former president is facing in 2 different states.
One of those states is New York, where Donald Trump invoked his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination during a 4-hour deposition. Now, that deposition is part of the New York State Attorney General's civil investigation into the Trump Organization's business practices. The AG's office alleges that the company inflated financial statements, which were signed off on by the former president. And just one day earlier, on Monday in Florida, FBI agents searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. That is part of an investigation into classified documents that Trump is alleged to have kept after leaving office. In a statement released yesterday, Trump cited that search as part of his reasoning for invoking the Fifth Amendment in the New York deposition. He said, quote, "If there was any question in my mind, the raid of my home, Mar-a-Lago, on Monday wiped out any uncertainty. I have absolutely no choice because the current administration and many prosecutors in this country have lost all moral and ethical bounds of decency." A senior Justice Department official and a former DOJ official tell NBC News about a growing push within the department for Attorney General Merrick Garland to address the motives behind the search in a public statement. We're going to dig into all of this for you this morning. In just a moment, NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos on all of the issues facing Trump. But let's start off with NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard and NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley for the latest on the investigations in both New York and Florida. Vaughn, let's start with you. What more can you tell us about this deposition yesterday, including the former president?
This was a deposition that was a long time coming, Joe. This is a situation in which Don Jr., as well as Eric and Ivanka Trump, had already been deposed by the New York Attorney General's office. Ultimately, lawyers for Donald Trump agreed to sit down with the New York Attorney General's office. We're told that Letitia James, the Attorney General herself, was in there for multiple hours with Donald Trump. But the important part of this is that Donald Trump, our producer Adam Reese, has been told by a source familiar, invoked the Fifth Amendment more than 440 times yesterday over the course of those more than 40 hours, only answering his name when questioned. So this is a situation here in which the New York Attorney General's office is looking at the extent to which the Trump Organization potentially inflated the valuation of its assets in order to receive tax benefits and other financial benefits. I want to let you look at part of the statement, though, put out yesterday by the former president, in which he was talking about this deposition and his decision to invoke the Fifth Amendment. He said in part, quote, "I once asked, if you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment? Now I know the answer to that question. When your family, your company, and all the people in your orbit have become the targets of an unfounded, politically motivated witch hunt, supported by lawyers, prosecutors, and the fake news media, you have no choice." Of course, there has been no evidence presented that any of these investigations are not without merit. At the same time, the former president has not been charged, and these are civil proceedings taking place with the New York Attorney General's office, Joe.
All right, so Vaughn, you are standing near Mar-a-Lago. Ryan, I want to ask you about the latest on that search at Mar-a-Lago. As you report, the DOJ and FBI have been quiet about this, perhaps quieter than usual given the high stakes. So why is that, and could that change? Could they decide to put more information out there because the former president is controlling so much of the narrative right now?
You're exactly right in that Donald Trump is really controlling the narrative on this and has basically been telling the story. The vast, overwhelming majority of information that is coming out about this search is coming from Trump and from his camp, Donald Trump's broader camp. A lot of the lawyers have been sharing information with reporters, and DOJ is really can't emphasize this enough, been playing this by the book. It's been very difficult to just get basic details of confirmations. Typically, when there's a search and there's law enforcement activity, you'll even be able to confirm just an address, right? You can give the address of Mar-a-Lago, for example, and say, okay, was there law enforcement activity here? And they'll come back and say, we can confirm there was law enforcement, court-authorized law enforcement activity at that location. Even that was a struggle with this case. So they're really just playing it by the book and making sure that they follow every single protocol of DOJ, because they know this is going to go and be looked over with a fine-tooth comb, that every part of this and every step of the way is going to be highly scrutinized by Republicans in Congress. It's just such a high-profile matter. There is some pushback within DOJ, as NBC News has reported, about the idea that this is a moment that calls for DOJ to sort of break those protocols and give more information about this ongoing probe. But I think that it's highly unlikely from Merrick Garland. I think he's been extremely clear that he wants to follow these protocols. He is a by-the-book sort of guy and has emphasized that throughout the course of his time as Attorney General of the United States.
Vaughn, we did see the FBI director, Christopher Wray, take some questions yesterday. He was asked about the growing calls for online violence, including threats circulating online against federal agents in the DOJ after that search at Mar-a-Lago. What did the director have to say about all that?
Yeah, actually, Joe, if I could, of course, the director was asked about the search warrant that was executed here by his agents here at Mar-a-Lago, and he said that he is not able to talk about the investigation. As Ryan was just pointing out here, that is that gap and that is that void, but that's not for a lack of us not seeing him. He was there in Nebraska yesterday, and instead he did comment on these threats here. Our Ben Collins, a reporter who has covered disinformation and the serious nature in which elements of the dark web have talked about violence here in the United States against federal officials here. This is a situation in which Ben has outlined the direct threats. We're talking about civil war. We're talking about violence against these very officials at the highest levels of government here. I want to let you hear from Director Wray address some of these threats.
As to the issue of threats, I will say that I'm always concerned about violence and threats of violence against law enforcement, and any threats made against law enforcement, including the men and women of the FBI, as with any law enforcement agency, are deplorable and dangerous.
We are not familiar with any acts of violence here at this point over the last 70 hours or so since that raid commenced here. At the same time, we all watched what unfolded on January 6, 2021, and that is such a large part of the reason why these threats are taken so seriously.
All right, Vaughn Hilliard and Ryan Riley, thanks for kicking us off this hour. We appreciate it.
Let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. Danny, good morning. So let's start with this deposition by New York Attorney General in this investigation with the New York Attorney General. What do you make first of his use of the Fifth Amendment, just how much it was used? Was his team correctly invoking that right here?
If I were advising Donald Trump, I'd probably tell him to do the same thing, which is invoke the Fifth Amendment and refuse to answer questions in a deposition. But that choice comes with some heavy consequences. While it's true that the assertion of the Fifth can't be used against you and by the way, the Fifth Amendment is the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution. It's the privilege against self-incrimination. You can't be compelled in a criminal case to be witness against himself. But as you can see there from the on screen, but it means more than that. It really means that the government can never compel you to speak or testify in a way that would incriminate you, and that includes in civil proceedings. And while what he says in invoking the Fifth can't be used against him in a criminal case, it absolutely can be used against him in a civil proceeding. And what I expect is that Trump's attorneys deemed that an acceptable risk and told him to assert the Fifth in answer to questions at a civil deposition.
Now, New York Attorney General Letitia James says her team is considering filing a civil case against Trump. How would his refusal to answer questions impact that? Does it?
It does. In any civil proceeding, a jury, for example, can draw a negative inference from the assertion of the Fifth Amendment. It's a little tricky, but basically it means that the jury or a fact finder can take the evidence that the other side has and assume that the witness who refused to answer just didn't have any evidence to counter it. So that can be a very devastating thing for a civil case, but a witness may decide that, well, I'll take the loss on my civil case if it means that I will avoid criminal culpability or criminal prosecution. Now, the real world consequence also is that when somebody asserts the Fifth Amendment, that perks up the ears of law enforcement. While they can't use that silence against the witness, they certainly can say, I think there's something afoot here. We should look into this. But in Trump's case, I mean, at this point, what isn't being looked into? I can't imagine anyone's in state or federal law enforcement's ears were perked about this that weren't already perked before.
So, Danny, what's next? Where does the Attorney General's office go from here?
They continue their investigation. Surely they anticipated that he might take the Fifth Amendment in a deposition. They continue to investigate. He's not the only source of their information, and they go forward. I think they even see this as a win both politically, because Trump has publicly asserted the Fifth after years ago saying that only guilty people essentially take the Fifth Amendment, but also procedurally, now they have an assertion of the Fifth Amendment, which they will probably try to use against him and have whatever fact finder in whatever case they may bring draw a negative inference against the former president.
All right, Danny Savalas, thank you so much.
The Justice Department has charged an Iranian national with plotting to kill former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. And we're learning it could have been part of a larger alleged plot targeting even more officials. NBC News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Andrea Mitchell reports.
The Department of Justice unsealed charging documents revealing an Iranian murder plot against John Bolton, the Trump National Security Advisor. The individual charged, Shahram Poursafi, is an Iranian national believed to be located in Tehran and a member of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. The Justice Department alleges that he was working on behalf of the IRGC and starting in October 2021 attempted to pay U.S. nationals $300,000 to carry out the murder on U.S. soil in Washington, D.C. or in Maryland. The DOJ believes the attempted murder was in retaliation for the U.S. assassination of Qasem Soleimani, the commander of the Quds Force, the Special Operations Division of the Revolutionary Guard. That happened back in January 2020, after John Bolton had left the administration, but he was well known as a hardliner on Iran. He was also one of the architects of the maximum pressure campaign the Trump administration waged against Iran, and he was a leading critic of the Iran nuclear deal, which is in the final make-or-break stages of negotiations for the U.S. and Iran to re-enter that agreement, possibly soon. Iran was designated a state sponsor of terror by the Trump White House, and as part of those talks, Iran had demanded that the U.S. lift the terror label. But the Biden administration has steadfastly refused to do that. And this incident likely demonstrates exactly why. In a statement released today, Bolton said, "I wish to thank the Justice Department for initiating the criminal proceeding unsealed today, the FBI for its diligence in discovering and tracking the Iranian regime's criminal threat to American citizens, and the Secret Service for once again providing protection against Tehran's efforts." Bolton has had Secret Service protection since December because of threats against his life, like this one. The Justice Department saying, "This is not the first time we have uncovered Iranian plots to exact revenge against individuals on U.S. soil, and we will work tirelessly to expose and disrupt every one of these efforts." We are trying to reach the Iranian government for comment. Back to you.
Andrea Mitchell, thank you.
And now to the economy and your money, and some good news this morning for everyone trying to catch a break at the pump. According to AAA, the national average price of a gallon of regular gas has now fallen below $4 a gallon, just below to $3.99. That's a major drop, though, from the peak of nearly $5 a gallon in mid-June. This comes after some encouraging news yesterday that the pace of inflation may also be slowing down a bit, and as lawmakers in Washington work to pass the Inflation Reduction Act. The Senate passed the bill over the weekend in a marathon weekend vote, and the House is expected to take it up tomorrow. It's considered the centerpiece of President Biden's economic agenda, and the bill is dividing Congress along party lines. The massive spending bill is aimed at easing the strain on your wallet as well as controlling the climate crisis, and it offers major savings on prescription drugs and health insurance premiums. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Rafa joins us now to take a look at what's in this and how it could help you save more. Ali, good morning. So this bill has a lot to do with climate change, but there's also quite a few health care benefits in here. First, let's talk about that. How would the bill benefit seniors on Medicare specifically? I know there's some big changes here.
Yeah, Savannah. Well, first of all, just schedule-wise, we heard House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced yesterday that this will be taken up in the House, and it has a very good chance of passing there. Remember, Democrats technically don't need Republican support to get it passed in the House tomorrow and send it to President's desk. But as you mentioned there, one of the massive provisions in this bill is related to health care, negotiating drug prices. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer saying that one of the health care provisions in this starts next year, and it will allow allow Americans to not have to pay more than $2,000 out of pocket for prescription drugs. Another major provision in this bill is Medicare will now be able to start negotiating directly with drug companies. That's something that won't take effect, unfortunately, until 2026. But one controversial provision in this bill had to do with insulin pricing, and that has to do with Medicare patients who will now not have to pay more than $35 a month for insulin. That was after several Republican senators blocked that cap from being extended to just normal Americans with private insurance. That was an extremely controversial move, something that Democrats have already seized on and started campaigning on, attacking their Republican opponents ahead of the midterm election, Savannah.
Now let's talk about the climate piece of this. What are those benefits there? What stands out for you? I know there's these electric vehicle credits, things that you can do in your house that means you get some credits. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is a historic investment in clean energy, in climate change, really the biggest in this nation's history. It includes $369 billion in funding to fight global warming and invest in clean energy. There's $369 billion, as I mentioned, that will encompass several provisions that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer laid out, really saying that it'll make electrical costs for your home go down. It'll boost manufacturing of electrical vehicles, boost the manufacturing of electrical appliances. It'll also cut carbon emissions around 40% from 2005 levels by the year 2030 by using more clean power, solar, wind. So this is definitely a historic deal for Democrats. Some of them were not happy with how far this went. They thought it could go farther, but this is definitely being seen as a win, a victory lap for the Biden administration. And Democrats are saying that this isn't the end, that this streak of legislative victories isn't the end for them. They say they're going to come back after this August recess and do more and try to keep the focus and attention of voters on their legislative victories ahead of the midterm, Savannah.
All right, Ali Rafa, thank you so much.
Some breaking weather news overnight. Flash flooding in Washington, D.C. caught many residents by surprise. As much as 4 inches of rain fell in some neighborhoods.
And Bill Cairns joins us again this week with more. Hi, Bill. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. In this video of Rhode Island Avenue, this is northwest portions of the Washington, D.C. area, and that's where we had this extreme flooding. And the owner of this shop says this is the 3rd time that the road has flooded in the last 3 weeks. So I know we've had at least 2 really big rainstorms in northwest portions of D.C., but maybe they have some drainage issues there also along with that interstate. But yeah, when you get 3 inches of rain in a quick period of time, there's not many drainage systems that can handle that volume of water. So yeah, look at that. It's like being in a fishbowl. All right, so here's what we're going to deal with today. The flash flood threat is diminishing. That is great news for our friends in Kentucky, West Virginia, and also Virginia and the D.C. area. So the cooler air will be moving in. We have one little last batch of heavy rain. It has been impacting areas from Philadelphia to just south in New York City and all through New Jersey during the morning. This is about to head off the coast. It looks like Long Island will get soaked, so expect things to be a little slow. We could have some minor airport problems there at JFK Airport and also maybe possibly at LaGuardia, but that should clear up pretty quickly this morning. As far as other areas of concern for today, as this front drops to the south, we will see additional areas of heavy rain and thunderstorms, but it will be in areas like Tennessee, North Carolina. We'll have to watch the mountains from Asheville to Knoxville to Boone to make sure we don't get any flash flooding. We'll also see some periods of very heavy rain around Charleston and Savannah. Of course, Charleston, anytime it pours, you do get some areas of localized flash flooding. And then into Friday, we mostly keep that thunderstorm threat to eastern North Carolina and around Charleston to Myrtle Beach and the Georgetown areas there of South Carolina. So as far as heavy rainfall goes, if we're going to see any flash flooding over the next couple of days, we'll have to watch the Carolina coast and also our friends from Lake Charles to New Orleans, Mobile, Pensacola, Panama City. That area could get soaked as we go throughout the next couple of afternoons. So for today's forecast, the cool, beautiful Canadian air is on the way in. Chicago, suck it up and enjoy it today. 78, that's it for your high with sunshine. Same goes for Detroit and Cleveland. And eventually, that's what we'll move into New York. And everyone will love your Friday forecast from Virginia northwards. D.C., 82 and sunny. Same for New York and Boston and Philly. That's the reward day, guys, for all the hot, humid weather we've had lately. Unfortunately, our friends in the middle of the country, not quite yet. Still upper 90s to near 100 from Dallas all the way to Omaha.
We are owed several reward days, so it's good to see they're coming now.
Especially after, what was that, Tuesday here? Yeah. All right, Bill, thanks so much. Great to have you with us.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.